This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in to the Triple Option here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Mr. Monday, Chris Allman.
That's not a nickname that's going to stick.
A case of the Mondays is good for us because that means we have Chris Allman in studio.
Oh, man.
Here on the Triple Option.
Can't say stuff like that. I believe you get your A kicked for saying something like that.
Yeah. No, but...
A little office space right off the top.
Yeah, exactly. We have got the first full weekend of college football, not like a little partial... Like, this is the main course. Yeah. We got the amuse-bouche in week 0, the appetizer course, the salad.
I hate that the camera can't see your hands doing this when you say amuse-bouche.
The amuse-bouche, the little, So
so
they got
Italian.
So.
Wait, is that French?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little Italian. Italians.
All right.
Yeah, but this week we get, everybody's playing now. We have huge games. I'll just get right into it.
Yeah.
Garrett.
Delaware Stony Brook?
Yeah. Oh. Garrett and I, we've moved past it, but my guys put an absolute beating on his guys last night. A beating.
Is there tension with you guys in game?
There was a little at the beginning. I mean, like, we wait until like the game kind of finds its natural rhythm to speak to one another, and then we don't do it that much.
Okay.
Out of respect for one another.
Because you're professionals.
Yes, we're professionals.
Yeah.
And look, the world's going to keep on spinning no matter what happens.
That's true.
Although mine spins a little faster than his today. That's it.
It does.
That's just.
The sun's a little bit brighter on your side of the world.
Yeah, just how it is. But it was unbelievable. I think there are a couple things that the whole college football world's going to be talking about this week. Obviously, Florida State beating LSU, the way they did, the way that second half was. And then, of course, Deion Sanders rolling into Fort Worth and the debut that team full of 80 new guys or whatever it is had was really interesting. And
I've been thinking about that game a lot because that's really the only game of the weekend I was able to watch start to finish. Mm-hmm. So whenever you're ready, we can get to that. But I know we want to do Florida State, LSU.
By the way, I didn't get to watch the entire second quarter of the game because I lost power in the very minor thunderstorm we had last night.
Really?
Yes, for an hour and change, from the second quarter until halftime.
Doesn't take much here in our lovely city to knock out the power, does it?
Or our state.
That's true.
I can give people watching from around the country, when you say, like, man, Texas got it going on, they got their own grid. No, we don't. We don't have it going on.
You worked that voice in that I wanted.
Did. You wanted me to?
Before the show.
Yeah. Like 30 or 40 years ago, the state of Texas said, we're going to have our own grid. We're going to be independent. We don't need anybody. And they said, this is going to be a great idea for us because we're Texas and we can figure it out.
Sure.
And then they didn't really finish it.
Yeah.
They
may have erred along the way a little bit.
Yeah, they made the most basic thing they could. Anyway, so I lost power for a little while last night.
Okay.
And so I'm having to watch on I couldn't even get it. My phone was just not loading it. And then Amanda, my wife, finally was like, here, watch it. I felt like a 7-year-old at the doctor's office. Like your mom has an appointment and you just have to sit there and she was just like, here, watch this.
Fine, just shut up. Here's the phone.
If she could have, like, the only way I could have felt like more immature or like a baby if she had handed me a bag of Cheerios.
Yeah, which, by the way, quick parenting tip, if the time ever comes, every parent has a hot take that they're not going to let their kids use electronics. Mm-hmm. And then the minute it hits the fan at the Red Lobster, they're definitely giving their kid the phone. So just know it's okay when you do.
Yeah.
So I was able to watch, it's Labor Day, it's family time. So we had movie night going and Florida State LSU on the phone. So I was able to watch most of it. It really didn't seem like LSU they were in that game score-wise, but it really felt more like Florida State was kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And when they stopped in the second half, it changed.
Yeah, they were, the penalties and here's where I think, Mike Norvell doesn't get enough credit. He really, and it's because of people like me early on in his career who were, you lost to Jacksonville State, how could you do this?
Oh, yeah.
But they had 5 penalties for 53 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Like before you went to like the 11th commercial break, which is not a lot in college football, by the way. But before you went to that, at the end of the first quarter, it's 7-7. They'd already committed 5 penalties, 2 personal fouls, and a pass interference among them. One of the personal, like the offensive pass interference, I thought was a little bit ticky-tack. But again, whatever. Like you commit 2 personal fouls, like what are you doing? And then after that, they only had 2 more penalties for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So they cleaned that, like they got over their emotions and cleaned that up. They really, and I kind of felt this watching in the second quarter, FSU needed to get in the locker room, not because the whole second half adjustments thing, all that. They just needed to calm down.
Yeah.
Like once they calmed down and they were able to like execute their game plan, then it got real.
Yeah.
And that entire team is out of the transfer portal. Jordan Travis is at Louisville. Johnny Wilson was Arizona State. The whole offensive line, pretty much, save for I think one guy, was somewhere else. Keon Coleman from Michigan State. Trey Benson came from Oregon. So like all the starters and all. Jaheim Bell's from South Carolina. The other tight end, Kyle Morlock, is from some little tiny school and hit a growth spurt.
Yeah.
And then you go to defense. Braden Fisk is from Western Michigan. Jared Verse is from Albany. I mean, like they're everybody from there. This Fentrell Cypress, Virginia.
Yeah.
They are full of transfers. He has shortcutted this thing to relevance in a way that like I don't think people have quite understood, because Lane Kiffin kind of jumped out in front of people and said he's the portal king. Well, Lane, if you're the portal king, then Mike Norvell might be the portal god.
Yeah.
Because he is hitting on almost everybody he goes and grabs out of there.
Yeah. Kiffin he's a spare. I think that in our little world where we're at, like right here between the Florida State LSU game, between the Colorado TCU game, between the Baylor Texas State game, the winner of the weekend was the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Like that was the winner of the weekend. I don't think that's not like news to anyone that like, oh wow, this thing works. But you're right in that Mike Norvell has got a team full of transfers that there aren't question marks about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like with Colorado, there's still question marks. But with Florida State, like that team last night, and I can be prone to hyperbole, but they looked like some Florida State teams I've seen before a couple of decades ago.
Really did. And look, LSU made some mistakes coaching-wise. I mean, Garrett might just shout out loud, but Harold Perkins, Garrett's on the mic right now. Harold Perkins in coverage doesn't make sense. Now, one day he might learn it and do really well with it because he's a superb athlete, but right now he needs to be a quarterback-seeking missile. That's what he needs to be.
He had a career high of pass coverages last night. I believe it was 28, and he only rushed the passer like 7 times, okay? That is not his...
Flip that.
Yeah, that is not his strong suit, man. You cut him loose. You bring up a great point. He's the second coming of Micah Parsons. Let him be a howitzer, dude. Let him go at people. They completely neglected that last night.
Yeah. So let me ask from a coaching perspective, are there things Florida State is doing to force that?
Well,
it's not necessarily an LSU coaching issue. I mean, it's a little bit.
I think the biggest thing is that, especially early in the game, they really made LSU think that they were going to throw to Jaheim Bell a lot. Which they did at the end of the game, the reason they did was because Harold Perkins wasn't over there. So, because they were like, well, we got to send him now.
Yeah.
But they've got to flip that ratio. They really do. Having him in coverage and covering your tight end is fine. But, yeah, I think part of that was forced. Like, Mike Norvell and staff really, really figured out what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And, yeah, once they got out of their own way, honestly, quit committing penalties, Florida State just rolled. LSU, though, I mean, I don't think any differently of LSU this morning than I did before the game yesterday, other than, Florida State's probably is better. Like, that's the only thing I know. And that Florida State's a little bit better than them than I thought. And the score, 45-24, and LSU's last touchdown was, in garbage time. But I still think part of that was the last FSU didn't really need to score those last 2 touchdowns. They'd already put the dagger in the heart. and they just absolutely wanted to send a statement to the rest of the country.
I'm glad they did that. I was happy that he did that. Like if LSU was in that position, Brian Kelly needs to do that because you're looking at it from it's a 4-team playoff. You leave no margin of error. You leave no excuses at the end. Separate the score as far as possible. It was kind of counterintuitive to what we saw last year with Georgia and how they beat Oregon, just not to that level of it.
Yeah, I think also because the SEC is just in so many people's minds. When you get a shot to beat an SEC team, you really have to send that message.
Yeah. I was going to ask if we're already, and maybe this is naivety on my part, but in week 1, we are in the beauty pageant phase of this where how you win matters. And so scoring those last couple matters.
Yeah.
But can I ask, as a cynical college football person, does this really even affect LSU in the grand scheme of things? I mean, this is going to be they got to win.
If they don't lose again, then no, because they're going to win the SEC. But their margin of error has dropped considerably.
Yeah.
And they're in the SEC West. They still have to play Alabama.
Sure.
They still have to play A&M, which even that game has started to make no sense. Like the good team loses in that one all the time now, or it just
could be 12 overtimes.
Yeah, it just started to make no sense. So you've got Alabama, A&M, Ole Miss on your schedule. Ole Miss, you've got those teams to deal with. So
I guess my cynicism creeps in a little bit. That I look at it and I think there's going to be like the SEC champs always getting in, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But then the cynic in me says, well, they're going to try to figure out another way. So I'm already sitting here thinking that in early December, we're hearing, well, that Florida State loss was really quality, and even though they didn't win the SEC, they should get in anyway. Yeah. And so I don't want to look at week 1 and go, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. But I understand if LSU fan is frustrated this morning.
They would have to not win the SEC by only losing to Georgia. They'd
have to win the West.
They have to win the West, undefeated win the West, and then only lose to Georgia.
Yeah.
For that to even be a thing, and then you'd have to hope that the Big Ten doesn't have a 1-loss Ohio State and a undefeated Michigan. Things like that. That look, if the Pac-12 has an undefeated team, we saw how well they played.
They haven't lost all year.
They're 13-0 right now because USC's played twice. So they are 13-0, and they've not looked back yet. Like they have not. The only one that's even had trouble, honestly, I think, and I could be wrong here, was TCU or Colorado because they played TCU.
Yeah.
And that game, we can transition to that right now. That game was, I remember I heard people doubting Deion Sanders and saying, well, he did it at Jackson State, it's a different thing. And I thought man, this guy's been successful at almost everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
Save for this prime prep high school he tried to do.
Yeah.
But
he also had a music career that wasn't stellar.
Yeah, but you remember it.
But Must Be the Money's a good song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, he's done a lot of things and been very successful at it. And the one thing he knows more than all of those things that aren't football is football.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me that, especially in this era where flash and attention and proving a point and, being big and loud is the most important it's ever been, that this guy isn't going to figure those things out. And still don't like his defensive coordinator hire, but that's just because he was not good when he was at FSU. But there are things again, doubt him at your peril. And I just thought it would take him a little bit longer to get that statement win not because the guys he brought in weren't good, but to get players to play together takes time.
Yes.
And I think that, granted, TCU made some big mistakes at crucial times. I mean, 2 interceptions in the red zone, or kill it. Travis Hunter one still was just the most amazing play.
That kid
He's
needs
really
his own
good.
hour.
Yeah. So he was. I mean, everything worked out for Colorado. Their defense struggled against TCU because TCU is also really good.
Yeah.
But there are things, it was mentioned before the game, and I didn't even know this. I just read it afterwards. But when Kendall Briles was at Florida State and Deion was dead set on sending his kids to go play for Willie Taggart, before Willie got fired, Kendall didn't really treat Shedeur very well when that was going on. So, while Kendall wasn't really the problem, he did light a fire under the quarterback and the head coach.
Yeah.
So, all those things, again, continue to doubt Deion Sanders at your peril. I was always like, man, my whole thing about Deion coaching was I can't wait to see how this works out. And
yeah, I feel like I don't want to I want to give credit where credit is due, but also I don't think it's wrong maybe it's not even doubt. I don't think it was wrong to wonder if he's going to be good at this level. I think there was a healthy curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think you can look at it and say, here's objectively what's true. It's his first game head coaching in a Power 5 conference. It's against a team that went to the national championship game last year. He's got 53 new players or more.
I think it's 80 when you get all set.
Maybe Texas State had 53. I may be getting my numbers wrong. I think it's okay to say, we'll see.
Yeah.
But nobody was like, Deion can't coach. Deion doesn't know what he's doing. I don't think anybody looks at Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter and thinks, oh, these guys can't play at that level. So I think it was okay to have a healthy cynicism that he was just going to go out there and smoke TCU. And they didn't, right?
They won by 3.
3-point game.
Yeah.
But it affirmed a lot of things like you just said. We know Deion can coach. We know he knows football. They can still go 1-11. They can still go 6-6. The bloom can come off the rose, but
look, they still got to play. You got to play Nebraska this week, which I think kind of works out in their favor because Nebraska's rebuild is in a different spot. Obviously, I hope that they find a way to maintain that rivalry going forward.
Yeah.
But they have USC Oregon coming up. Those schools pretty much back to back.
Yeah.
They're going to have some tough goes. And look, if you were going to tell me, Lincoln Riley versus Deion Sanders, that game's going to be in the 50s.
Yeah.
For sure. We already saw the preview of how that's going to be with the TCU thing. So that's going to be a shootout. It's absolutely going to be a shootout. The other thing I think is that everybody in the Big 12 that was super excited that Colorado was coming is like, well, maybe the Pac-12 should have stayed together. Because, and here's the thing, I thought about it from a Big 12 perspective. From the Big 12 perspective, there's nobody who owns this league anymore.
Right.
Once Texas and Oklahoma leave, it's all new real estate. There are teams that have won it. There are teams that have competed for it. And one of those teams that has competed for it, it's coming back in Colorado, right? They've had some good runs. And there are going to be the talk of the college football until Deion Sanders takes a different job. So it's great news all the way around for the Big 12, except for the fact that you've got a guy who's probably going to hit the ground running in a way that we haven't seen before.
Well, this is kind of a tangential question, but doesn't it puts a very unique pressure on coaches because it now has to be about far more than your X's and O's and your ability. You have to be – Dave Aranda is a phenomenal football coach, but when Colorado and Baylor are trying to lure someone, the same kid from the portal, charisma is going to matter, right? Relatability is going to matter, and poor Coach Aranda, and they couldn't be any more different.
Well, and here's the thing. I also think that in the NIL era, Deion's going to have a unique advantage because there's nobody who can do this better than him, and there's only a few coaches that even have the kind of juice that would be close to his level. But if he just called up a shoe company or a soda pop company or whatever and said, I would like to be your sponsor, but here's part of my deal. I would like you to put, instead of paying me $5 million, I would like you to also sponsor, he can't really do that, but
but there are no rules
but if you also say if we sponsor Colorado, then if we, get some of their athletes as NIL, then, that's going to get a lot of attention for our brand.
Yeah.
More so than if you sponsor, say Ole Miss or somebody like that. And that guy loves to get attention in Lane Kiffin, right? But he can't do it like Deion can.
Right.
Deion's a celebrity. We're a celebrity-driven culture.
Yeah.
For better or for worse,
He might very well, and again, it's the Monday after, but he might very well be dramatically changing the game, right? We thought he could, and now all that did was fuel this idea that he might be dramatically changing things. But again, major takeaway from the weekend is the guy can coach.
Yeah.
And dudes that can play anywhere.
Yeah.
And Sanders and Hunter, they are dudes that can play.
And Hunter was the number one recruit in the country.
Yeah.
And then
he's not a sleeper.
And then followed Deion.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, when that happened, I remember thinking, like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Because if Deion Sanders can tell a kid who, in Travis Hunter wanted to go to FSU, who's going to FSU, if he can call up a kid and go, look, just come with me wherever I go. And the kid's like, well, I mean, no offense, but Deion Sanders.
Sure, yeah.
Like that's going to be a problem. Now, he's going to change the game in and around himself and maybe some other places. But until there's another gigantic celebrity head coach that comes in that's like him, it's really only going to be because of Deion, right?
Yeah.
I remember the late, great Butch Henry and I had a debate about Brittany Griner one time when he said she's going to change women's basketball. And I'm, well, no. I mean, she's going to change the game she's involved in.
Yeah.
But she's not going to change women's basketball because, like, they're just not making people built like her with her athletic skill set.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, you know, yes, she's changed this much. And, like, yes, we know that there's people out there like Brittany Griner, but it's not like there's an island full of Deions that you can just go and be like, hey, we would like a Deion, please. And they're like, okay, here you go. Here's a Deion, like the Oompa Loompas. It's not like that.
It would be a fun barroom conversation to try and theorize who even could be the next guy like him. Because I don't know that there's not one coaching anywhere right now.
Like if Travis Kelce wanted to be a college coach, like he would be a guy who, and he's not even near as famous as Deion, and he's super famous.
Yeah.
Like would Patrick Mahomes want to do it, or would Tom Brady want to be a college football head coach?
Yeah, but even he doesn't have what Deion has.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's only
and Tom
one
Brady's
Deion.
like one of the coolest guys ever, and he's not even as cool as Deion.
Man, Deion is the king of the sports world here on this Monday.
This is like Tom Brady's won 7 Super Bowls, but has he won a World Series? No.
No. Wait, did Deion win one? I don't think
Deion
Deion won
was he
one.
with the Braves?
I don't think he was there in 95 when they won it. But he did hit 533 in the 92 World Series.
Yeah, we got to look that up. Where was Deion playing baseball in 95?
My guess is the Reds.
Because he was with the Cowboys. Yeah, he might have been with the Reds.
Might have been the Reds.
Yeah.
Little baseball talk there.
Played a bunch of playoff games with the Braves, though.
Yes, he did.
Played a bunch of playoff games with them.
Yes, he did.
Scored a touchdown and had interception, or scored a touchdown and hit a home run the same week.
I'm telling you, the more you dig into that guy, there is no superlative that's too small for him.
No.
Like he's generational.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think there's probably younger guys that don't just know him as like, I knew he was a big time athlete. Like, no, like there's one other guy like him that like honestly was better at baseball than him.
Yeah.
And was as good at football as him in Bo Jackson.
But not as charismatic.
Not as charismatic, no.
Could Michael Irvin do what Deion's doing? Could Michael Irvin lure? Does he have the appeal?
I don't think that Michael Irvin has the amount of personal discipline in his social life that Deion does.
Elaborate. Tell me more.
I think we know. But I think that's what's gotten Michael Irvin in trouble. I think Deion, and like I might be giving Deion more credit than it deserves there, but I certainly think he has a little bit more than that. That's what. But you need a personality like Michael Irvin could if he was a little bit better at those things.
Yeah.
In 1995, Deion was playing with the San Francisco Giants. He batted .280 and hit 5 home runs and stole 8 bases.
Deion was a Giant?
I didn't know that until right now, yeah.
Well, I think the Giants are on the grid today, so maybe Deion can be my answer.
Yeah.
I'm stumped on the grid today.
Yeah. I got super stumped yesterday.
Yesterday was hard, too.
Yesterday was hard. It was hard. It was a hard day. I don't think I even finished.
I didn't either.
I got kind of distracted.
If I can't get a perfect score, I just quit and pretend like there was no grid that day. That's how I do it.
You know what kills me? This is another tangent here. What kills me is when you go like, okay, who does fit this? And you hit it and you see like 11 names. You're like, well, I knew that. Like that, I knew that.
I did find a mistake on the grid, but nobody cares.
You don't want to be that guy.
No,
you don't want to
be that guy.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about this, especially upsets. The 2 biggest ones happened in the Big 12.
Yeah, they did.
The 2 biggest upsets happened in the Big 12. Well, the 3 biggest upsets happened in the Big 12.
Yeah.
TCU, which we've talked about, and then Texas Tech and Baylor. The Fun Belt and the Mountain West got a piece of the Big 12.
Got up in there.
Is the triple option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Welcome back to the Triple Option. Emery Winter in the house.
I'm trying to fact check Garrett. I'm really stumped by this Deion as a San Francisco Giant thing.
I believe he was also on the Reds that year. I think he probably got traded or something.
That might have been a deadline move.
52 games for the Giants.
So that would fits about the deadline, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's about the deadline. And then once the team he was playing, like he was playing both. Do you remember the Pizza Hut commercial he did?
No.
With Jerry Jones? So he and Jerry Jones did a Pizza Hut or a Papa John's commercial.
Okay.
I can't remember which. I think it was Pizza Hut.
Okay.
And Jerry was like, Deion, offense or defense?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, both, boss.
Yeah, 'cause
he was like, stuffed crust or deep dish? Both, boss.
Yeah.
You know? And then baseball or football? Both. You know? And that was the commercial.
Yeah, now I remember that.
Yeah.
Remember commercials?
Yeah. Saw a lot of them in college football this weekend.
Oh, gosh.
All right, here's the free plug of the day, by the way. And even though Garrett doesn't like pimento cheese, I'll tell you this. Chick-fil-A, you're a college football sponsor. We'd very much like you to be a sponsor of our show. The honey pimento sandwich, like that is miraculous. It is one of the best things I've ever put in my food hole.
I don't want to get crossways with you so early in this professional relationship, but that sounds disgusting to me.
Oh, if you're not a pimento cheese person,
no,
probably not.
Not a big honey guy either.
Oh, really?
Like honey chicken biscuit, isn't that one of the things they have?
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I love me some Chick-fil-A, but so.
What is your Chick-fil-A order?
Oh, like it's just as many nuggets as they'll give me.
Okay. Nugget tray. No judgment. Like no one can judge you because, again, everyone would be the same way.
The nugget tray is goated for football and basketball afternoons. When You're just sitting at home watching 30 nuggets on a tray, all the sauce.
Okay.
Oh.
But if you had a whole,
You get a 30 tray, you can get a 100 tray, I'm pretty
100
sure.
tray. Okay, if you had a 100 nugget tray to yourself before anybody could have any.
Okay.
Like the rule is, we'll call it the Tony Loomer rule because you knew Tony. Nobody knows Tony. He used to work with us at the radio station. And anytime anybody would bring in food, Tony would get like several passes at it before he even told you it was there.
Yeah.
So 100 nugget tray, Chick-fil-A.
How much time do I have?
As much as you want in
I think I could probably eat 50 or 60.
Yeah.
In a decent stretch. Like I don't think I could sit down in an hour.
Like if you had like a whole, like one of those like a barbecue, like where it's kind of like one of those all day things where you're going like pool party at somebody's house, you're watching games.
Yeah.
You know, football Saturday, we're like, hey, come over, we're gonna watch all 3 games.
Yeah.
We got a 100 nugget tray. This one just says Chris on it. You could clear about half of them.
Yeah, I think so.
Grazing over half of them.
Yeah, I think
Jack,
so.
what do you think? 100 nugget tray.
3
games, back to back to back.
3
Triple
games?
header. The triple header game day, hang at your buddy's house. The
Jack's-
nugget tray
It's
says
not gonna
Jack.
be healthy, but I'm probably going to hit at least 70.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say Jack could hit 100. And I've only known
I think
Jack
I
for 8
could
days.
finish it.
Yeah.
But lately I've been trying to eat healthier, so I think I'd only be gunning
I'll just
for
say, like,
70.
because you think about, like, noon kick or 11 o'clock here,
Yeah.
but, like, noon, we'll do East Coast times because that's what TV does. Noon, 3:30, primetime game. You're going to watch the best 3 in a row.
Okay.
Right? You start out with game day, and you just move on into the rest of the day before bedtime. 100 nugget tray that has your name on it.
All day long?
All
I could
day
do
long.
100 all day long.
You could do 100
Jack,
all day
you
long?
could do 100 all day long, right? Sun up to sundown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on. That's easy.
Emery Winter, 100 nugget tray with Emery's name on it. In a game.
In
See?
one game.
In a
Whoa.
game.
I just popped
Oh, Chick-fil-A.
Whoa. This year, it's only getting easier for him. More commercials. I feel like game times are just going to end up going up. I mean, we've got these 4-hour games going.
Okay,
here.
Here's the deal. We're gonna have to have Chick-fil-A do this for us. We're gonna have to see.
The hard part in your hypothetical is me trying to explain to my 8-year-old that those are mine. Like that I don't have any for her. Sorry, babe. I only have 100.
We'll just have to get it. Have them come here in the studio. We'll watch games all day long.
Okay.
And we'll do the thing. We'll just go and see.
Paul, find me a free Saturday then.
We'll figure it out.
I did 24 on Saturday just at lunch with my kids. So that's a quarter of the way just at lunch.
Okay. So there we go. All right. We'll figure it out. I'm gonna figure this out.
Is it time for a break? Did we just burn an entire segment?
Yeah. No. Okay. Much like your stomach after you eat 100 of anything, upsets this weekend.
Nice. Segue. That's professional broadcasting right there, guys.
Yeah. That was but honestly, Chick-fil-A, we'd like to do this challenge.
Sure.
We would, and just bring me a couple sandwiches. I'm fine. Although I love the nuggets as well, but I'm not going to pretend like I can do that.
I think we got another half hour in this, if they can get here quick.
Yeah. So, all right. Baylor loses to Texas State.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned in the last segment, a huge win for the transfer portal because that team is all transfers.
Yeah.
All transfers. And then Wyoming over Texas Tech in a game where, that one, I'm sure they were a little nervous about Tech going into Wyoming's place.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that'll get you. Those 2-for-1s, which I think is what they did with Wyoming.
Yeah.
Where they get 2 Wyomings and they go their place once. I think it's great. Like, I wish more teams would do that because I think it's great for the fans in Wyoming to have a P5 team rolling in.
Sure.
And that place is football crazy. You saw it the other night. Yellow and brown jerseys like the 75 Padres.
Yeah. Those are cool uniforms.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool colors.
Just they're there and win in overtime. And Texas Tech, a team that was rolling on the hype train, right now, a little bit derailed. Now, look, they haven't gotten into the Big 12 season yet, and Joey McGuire has an opportunity to rally the troops, but I have a feeling that in Lubbock, they were looking a little too forward to Bo Nix and the Ducks coming in this week and forgot that Wyoming was there until they were losing in the fourth quarter.
Yes, which I think, I can't speak for the Texas Tech fan base, I think looking ahead, dropping a season opener to Wyoming is a forgivable sin. I do. I think that Coach McGuire he's not on thin ice. He's got capital built up there. Nobody likes when they lose, but again, look,
Mike Norvell lost to Jacksonville State a couple years ago and then just did what he did last night.
Right.
The cycle spins a lot faster than it used to.
Yes, it does. I think losing to Texas State is an unforgivable sin is a really harsh term when you're talking about. How do you bounce back from that?
Year 4 for Dave Aranda, 2 years now removed from the Big 12 title. That stuff should not be happening.
Yes.
That should not be happening, especially when the schedule is outside of who you play. They got 8 home games.
Right.
To win the Big 12, I kind of theorized that Baylor needed to be 7-1 at home. And now the likelihood of them going now 7-0 at home and 2 of the home games coming up, just the next 2 of the next 3 home games are Utah this week and Texas in 3 weeks.
Yeah, they're
or 2 weeks, whatever it is.
That one felt like my brain constantly goes back to precedent, what I experienced. So my wife and I went to the game Saturday. What I experienced, what did that remind me of? In my freshman year in college, I was at Blinn wanting to go to Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. And that was near the end of the RC era. And they lost to Southwestern Louisiana early in the season. And that was it was already, at the times, there were rumblings about RC maybe being past his prime.
Well, then right after that, he won the Big 12, but yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
He did win the Big 12, 98?
Yeah.
But that loss to Southwestern Louisiana, that's what it felt like Saturday.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yes.
I do. I mean, growing up an Aggie fan, I remember it well. I remember seeing it on the bottom of the screen and going, ESPN's got that wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a mistake.
The game wasn't on TV because not everything was on TV back then.
Right.
I was like, no. Well,
Yeah, they'll fix that in the 11 o'clock
They'll fix
Sports
that
Center.
when they like Herb. Herb, come on, Herb.
Chiron's wrong.
Come on, buddy. Oh, Herb, he's been here since the beginning. No, it did like. I think RC Slocum, when they transitioned out of the Southwest Conference to the Big 12, was probably a little bit overwhelmed. And A&M was really good back then.
Yeah,
was probably a little bit overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden, like you have all these other coaches like you have to worry about. I think that's what ultimately got him.
Yeah, and
then. With Dave Aranda, I'm kind of perplexed about it. Like there are a lot of factors that have gone in that I can see going on that I would need a whole like podcast alone to talk about.
Yeah.
That through no fault of his own, I think has gotten kind of caught up in.
Are there any of those you can hit briefly here?
I would say that Baylor, and this is I need more backstory on this. Baylor was not ready for NIL. They weren't ready for it.
Okay.
Which in the transfer portal era matters a lot because it can be kind of the swing thing, especially when even if you're not going to be an NFL player for sure, you kind of want to hit that transfer and cash when you can.
Right.
There are schools that were very ready for it because SMU is going to do really well with NIL forever.
Yeah.
Because all they have to do is, and all they've done, same with A&M, is like, back in the 80s, this is what we did.
Sure, yeah.
Come in here, boy, let me show you.
There was a game day sign that said...
Like an old dusty thing and blew off the dust of it, like, here you go. Just update this with computer terms.
Sherwood Blunt's archives of
exactly.
all the things he did to recruit players.
Yeah, exactly. Just go through all that. That Baylor was not ready for that. That's not an excuse, but I do think it's wound them up. The reason that Texas State and Baylor can have that game is that I don't think Baylor's roster and Texas State's are really all that different right now.
No, I agree.
And part of that is like you've got this kind of going up and going down in circumstances. TJ Finley was at 2 SEC schools.
Yeah.
Okay. He is not at Auburn right now, and maybe not in the SEC because maybe he's not an SEC quarterback, but he's right on the cusp of it.
Yeah.
And then because of how it all went down and the timing of when he rode all the way out with that until the kind of last possible moment, he's got to go someplace where he knows he's going to start. Well, that's probably Texas State. And their other quarterback, Malik Hornsby, is a transfer from Arkansas who would still be in the SEC and probably at Arkansas if he just played a different position.
Really?
So, I mean, but those things have happened. G.J. Kinney has been kind of on top of that. And he went and got guys. And I think Baylor and Tech's losses are different. Baylor,
Me too, for sure.
Baylor has gotten caught up in a roster turnover the last couple of years that has not been favorable to them. Mm-hmm. The guys who were there that won the Big 12 title are all, for the most part, gone. There's some, but like the guys who are here now,
right.
a couple years later, were not necessarily key players in that
right.
in that run. Like Bryson Jackson, TJ Franklin, yeah, those guys were, but for the most part, the stars are all gone. Right? They're all the big parts of that out the door. Then you throw that into the fact that like. For a year, they didn't really get in the transfer portal,
right?
Except for a couple guys. They haven't hit on some of those transfers that have been there yet. And then this year, they got big in the transfer portal, but because I think they weren't as adept at maneuvering it.
Sure.
They got caught up in the washes where G.J. Kenny's just like, hey, the door is open. You can run to San Marcos. I will take you.
Yeah.
And because of that worked out for him. As where Tex seems to me is they were in a trap game one.
Yeah.
Because they were playing Oregon next week. They've got all this hype behind them. And even they're like the fans for sure looked past Wyoming, I'm sure.
1,000%.
But that can happen to the players as well.
Yes.
Because the players, walk around, listen to all that hype.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of happened with them.
I agree. So you were there Saturday working, correct?
Garrett and I watched it from here.
That's
right.
I did a
post game.
I just didn't know if you were up in the booth or if you were here.
No, we stayed here.
So this is again.
By the way, I had a honey pimento chicken sandwich while I watched that game.
Well,
and it not only made me happy, hunger wise. I think it made me smarter. Chick-fil-A, it made me smarter.
Well, I don't want
Please
to
sponsor the show.
I don't want to point at the scoreboard while I high step into the end zone here, but my cousin married a former Baylor football player who gave us their club seats. Mm-hmm. So I just ate from a buffet all night long.
Yeah.
So candidly, I didn't really care one way or another whether Baylor won that game. But
You just lost in a sea of mashed potatoes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Finley just scored on a 16-yard keeper. I think I saw more fajitas up there.
Yeah.
I think I'll sneak on up. Dude, nothing will ruin the experience of a college game than the fans at a college game. So you mentioned guys who are here and who aren't here from the 21 Big 12 Championship team. Blake Shapen is still here. I don't think I realized that he was such a lightning rod. I understand quarterback position is a lightning rod. But, dude, I was sitting around people, grown adults, that were screaming, "You are trash. You've been trash for 2 years." I'm not a football expert, but am I misguided in that Blake Shapen was the least of their problems the other night?
Oh, it's but he got a little bit of like the Charlie Brewer on him where, yeah, I mean, like there are things that Blake Shapen could have done better.
Yeah.
And Blake Shapen might be at the peak of his talent. We don't know. But like that's maybe like the worst thing that's going right now. But he was also given very little opportunities. I think, here's what I think. I think people are all secretly afraid of offensive linemen because they're big guys.
Okay.
And they think if they just say, hey, the offensive line stinks, yeah, he might not be able to, like, he may not be able to say, like, do anything about that on the field, but he can sure beat me up.
Yeah.
So they don't say anything. And plus the offensive line is 5 guys. Baylor's problem the other night, and the reason they lost that game, really had nothing to do with the skill positions. We knew their secondary was going to struggle, and have growing pains. That struggle would have been the strong word. I thought they were going to have growing pains. But what we did not expect was that Texas State would run right through on offense and defense the big guys up front. Baylor had no answers up front on either side of the ball, and that was the biggest surprise. Now, granted, they had 4 new starters on the offensive line, and the one that came back, Gavin Byers, actually when they took him out of the lineup last year, when Khalil Keith came back, they played better. So, like, there's a lot of questions with that offensive line for Baylor.
Yeah.
And I don't know how quickly you can get those solved when Utah's the team that you have to solve it against, who, if Texas State can run through you, logic will tell you that Utah, one of the toughest defenses in the country, will do that to you as well.
Sure, yeah. And I hate it. Like, look, I know that this is an independent thing, and you guys especially are media professionals, but this is where we live. We have people. I have people that I know and really like that work for the football team. Nobody wants them to be bad and struggle.
I don't think it's a lie. I don't think we've ever like shied away from it. When things are better at Baylor, things are better for us.
Yes.
Like, not that we're going to sit there and actively, like, I'm not going to run down to the sideline and cheer them on,
right?
Because that's not my job,
right?
But I'm not going to deny. And this is the same case. And this is the thing you ride in the sports media. And sometimes you become too much fan media.
Yeah.
But look. In the 90s, when the Bulls won 6 titles, like, it was super good to be in sports media in Chicago.
Sure, yeah.
You know, when in Boston, when anybody's winning a title, it's super good because everything is humming, you know? And if you're bad for too long, I mean, ask anybody who's got a Detroit Lions podcast. Like, they're just now like starting to get some juice.
Does that exist?
But, yeah, all right.
Locked on Lions.
I've been like doing Cowboys podcasts when I did. I've been on a couple of different Lions podcasts. And it's
Dan Campbell into a pseudonym.
Like, hey, right now they're excited because there's some actual juice. But
that's true.
Believe me, like 4 years ago, like hopping on a Lions podcast or a Lions radio station, be like, Cowboys are playing the Lions this week. We got Paul Catalina here.
Locked On Lions daily podcast on the Detroit Lions. Matt Derry brings you a daily podcast on your Detroit Lions in the NFL.
Are there any photos?
I was on that show.
You've been on that? Is there any photos? Does he wear like a Scott Mitchell jersey when he hosts
I pulled it up on Spotify, man.
We had
social media.
We had Scott Mitchell on the show about 3 weeks ago, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
all my throwback references are landing.
Utah color analyst, by the way. Yeah.
So can I hit 2 other things from the Baylor game from being there that I noticed? Number 1, place was about 70% full. Mm-hmm. So now again, it's hot, a lot on the visiting side, but on the home side, I mean, it wasn't packed out. It didn't feel, just from the numbers, like everybody was super jazzed about it being football season.
The student section was surprisingly good at the start.
Yes.
Once they didn't have something to root for and cheer for, it fell apart. But at the start, they were surprisingly good for Texas State.
The line was awesome, like the yellow-shirted kids. And 2, now I may be looking at this a little bit through the lens of having watched Texas State kind of dominate that game from start to finish. But there was never a moment in that game where they thought they weren't going to win. When they came out of that tunnel, and then very quickly in that game, chirping, there's always talking going on, right? Every guy thinks he's the best guy on the field. But Texas State's receivers were nonstop chatter because they just flat thought and knew they were better than the guys that were guarding them. So it was jarring. Yeah. It was jarring to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And you know, the Big 12, again, like they're when you're talking about the biggest upsets of the week, they were all three of them.
Yeah.
And maybe Fresno State beating Purdue, like that one could have been.
Don't hurt me, Paul.
Yeah, sorry. It was a rough weekend for Jack.
Oh, I'm sorry,
really
Jack.
rough. Also,
get
Jack,
you some nuggets.
Jack does a podcast, College Football Chaos, over on Crystal Ball College Football with Garrett, and let his podcast host talk him into making a bad pick last night. So that's the thing that happened.
Did you pick LSU, Jack?
I picked LSU not because of Garrett, but because of your co-host Paul on Thursday.
Oh, because of Pierre?
Yeah, I just didn't want to be the same as Pierre because we would have had the exact same picks, all five. So
whoever loses the pick'em has to do a punishment, which is Garrett. He has to wear Alabama stuff this week. We have a different set of punishments, and that one's burned, and that one's the easy one.
Yeah, we need to find the killing our way through the SEC shirt.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that's
the TCU loss it's actually probably the easiest one of all of them. Not for TCU fans, but nobody's talking about TCU. Nobody's like, holy crap, what's wrong with TCU?
No.
You and I both are logical humans. We looked at Wyoming Tech and said, yeah, trap game, first game of the season. The Texas Tech Baylor one is the one that stings the most. Not even personally. It leaves a lot of questions. If you've got Utah this week, you've got Texas 2 games after that. If you got to go on the road to UCF to the bounce house in their first ever Big 12 home game, I'm not even in October yet. Yeah.
And I've got bigger questions than I had because I thought if Baylor could come out of September 3-2, then that was going to be a good sign because Utah and Texas, I was never going to pick Baylor in those games. And they could have won them. You know, I just didn't know.
Right.
But this is the least able I've been to wrap my arms around who Baylor's going to be. Yeah. And that's going to happen. What's happening at Baylor is going to happen to a lot of teams because of the way that rosters shuffle in and out now so quickly. And if you see a team that hit on the right kind of roster shuffle right out of the gate, you know, it's like Colorado did, and where I'll compare Colorado, Texas State to what Florida State looks like right now is that it's been a 3-year process with them, 21, 22, and now of building up this transfer portal and trying to get people to make it. Like Deion will have some of those growing pains because that's just sports.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be injured. They're okay up front on both sides, but they're not great. Yes. So somebody's going to be better than them, but they're like the gap is not as wide as anybody would have thought.
Well, and 2 other quick things on Colorado. I do think that 7-8 games down the road, when there's 7-8 games of film, it will be a little bit different. Sonny Dykes said before the game it was the most anxious he had ever been.
Well, he told us when we had him on the show.
Yeah, he didn't really know what was coming.
Yeah.
Right? And then 2, Travis Hunter deserves everything everyone says about him today. It's going to be really hard to do that for 13 or 14 games and stay healthy and not stay fatigued or not get fatigued. And so I think a little bit of levity, I don't think we should go ahead and get them fitted for rings.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think we need to start packing Coach Aranda's U-Haul, right? Like a lot can change after 1 week of the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a lot, but it's just, it's a wild week. And look, here's the other thing. We didn't mention North Carolina and South Carolina. Yeah. That's another ACC win over the SEC. And even though it was just 14 points, pretty emphatic that Spencer Rattler, who had a pretty good game outside of getting absolutely pummeled.
Yeah.
I think he got sacked 9 times.
Yeah, Carolina's defense was way better than I think anybody thought they were going to be.
Yeah, Gene Chizik and Mac Brown back to their old 05 tricks.
Wow.
Yeah, or 04, I don't know. When did Chizik leave? Was he on the 05 DC?
I think Chizik was their DC.
Yeah, I think he was
that
05.
Muschamp?
No, he
I get
was
all
the
the
05.
coaches in waiting
Muschamp, I think
confused.
Muschamp took over for Chiswick when
Okay.
Chiswick went to Iowa State.
Okay, I get all of them confused.
before he went to Auburn. I don't know, whatever it was, but because Chiswick was at Auburn. I don't know. I got to get back to my timelines right. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about. We didn't get to talk about the ACC and what they did.
Yeah.
Plus, we got to look ahead to two really huge games this week. One that's an 0-1 team versus a 1-0 team in Tech and Oregon, and Bama and Texas. Round 2 is this Saturday.
Woo.
That's coming up next. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There we go. Sorry, I lost some monitors there for a second. Chris thinks the Chick-fil-A segment's going to win an Emmy.
Yeah, I'm
it
wondering,
should.
how do they vote for sports Emmys?
A sports Emmy? Do we get that for online segments?
Jack told us we had 9 minutes left to talk about college football, and we're still doing Chick-fil-A.
Well,
Sorry,
look,
Jack.
we've invented something here, a trademark, the 100 Nugget Challenge.
100 Nugget Challenge.
Which we'll try to do. Okay, so this week, Texas and Bama, version 2, volume 2.
Volume 2.
Oregon
Part
and
2.
Texas Tech in Lubbock, which Texas Tech fans will be extra lubed up for. And and then Deion, Colorado, Nebraska, which we have probably the two biggest coaching hires. And Matt Rule, here's the thing about Matt Rule, would have been the biggest coaching hire.
If not for Deion.
If not the fact that Deion Sanders decided a couple years ago, you know what I'd like to do and my true calling is to be a college head football coach.
To be a maker of men.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Let's just see, And then when I brought it up, some people told me, that's a bad idea, Deion. And then I said, oh, is it now? So, yeah.
Is there one, if you just had one television set to watch those, is there one particular that you're not missing?
It would be Texas and Bama because last year's game swung on the fact that Quinn Ewers got hurt because Bama was not really playing that well.
Right.
It swung on the fact that Quinn Ewers got hurt and Bryce Young was Bryce Young, right? So Bryce Young became Bryce Young when he needed to be and then went on, obviously, to be Bryce Young, for the rest of it. But they had the Heisman Trophy winner, the defending Heisman Trophy winner. He went and did some of those things, and they fought through and won that a very close game. This time it's in Tuscaloosa, a place that they don't lose, and a place that is really rowdy. But have you ever been there? There's a bit of a point in the game where you're like, do these people care about what's going on? Or are they just so comfortable with their joy that they're just like, did we fumble? Oh, that'll get taken care of. Don't worry about it.
That never happened.
Don't worry about it. No. Oh, no. We're fine.
Yeah, I think the people of Bama are doing just fine.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, we get to see, Jalen Milroe, who played really well against Middle Tennessee State, which was not something you could have said for his other starts last year. You saw little glimpses of it, but he played well against Middle Tennessee State. I know that's not a big thing, but for him to play well, I think for Alabama was a big deal considering that they didn't name him the starter until a couple days before the game. And so you'll see that against the Texas defense. Quinn Ewers, can he throw them to a victory if he needs to against Bama? There's a lot of interesting questions there.
Yeah. I'm going to conservatively, I think Alabama's going to beat them. I just can't be, and I don't have any axe to grind with Texas at all. I'm not going to be convinced that they are the Texas of old for a while.
Yeah.
I think even if they beat Bama, I'm still not going to be convinced because they've had individual big wins once a year for the last decade.
Yeah.
You know? So I think, especially in Tuscaloosa, like, it could be a close game. And Saban's, 18-2 all time against his old assistants, and the two are Kirby Smart, or did he lose to Kiffin?
No, Jimbo beat him.
So he's got to be more than 18-2. If he's lost to Kirby, Jimbo, Lane.
He hasn't lost to Lane.
He hasn't. So maybe it is 18-2.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just making stuff up, Paul.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just grabbing numbers and saying
Jimbo
them.
was the first one to get him, I think.
Okay.
And then Kirby got him.
Okay. So it must be 18-2.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know this is not a pick segment, but there's nothing that makes me, to me, the one that I'm going to want to watch is the Colorado-Nebraska game because I think Coach Rule's a really good coach. I think he has a plan. I don't think his plan is to rewrite the ship between week 1 and week 2, right? They may regress a little bit before they're better. But the bloom can come off the rose as far as public relations go for Colorado if they go lay an egg there.
Yeah. Well, here's one of the biggest differences is that Coach Rule's son is 16 years old, and he is not Shedeur Sanders. So that's a huge deal. Like, Deion had that ace in the hole, too.
That's true.
That he brought with him was, and it's all about the quarterback, right? He had a really good one that he literally made.
Yeah, he
literally made him.
Large part in making.
Yeah, he is 50% of that guy. So that was huge, and so and again, Matt Rule's kid's not going to probably be the quarterback for Nebraska. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want to shut out his whole future, but I don't think he's even planning on that.
God bless the rules. I don't know if quarterback genes are
so
that lineage.
But at the end of it all, like, it's going to be how much can he get that defense to look like it did against Minnesota last week and slow down a huge offense there. We only have 4 minutes left, so we have to get in a little bit of realignment stuff because we didn't get to talk about the ACC, Stanford, Cal, and SMU going to the ACC, foregoing a lot of money for 9 years to do so.
Yeah.
SMU, all of it. But your thoughts as an observer of college football on the new ACC?
I love it as a basketball fan. I love the fact that if I want to drive up and watch Duke play and North Carolina play in a couple years, I can. I don't know the particulars of the deal. So SMU's not taking revenue for 9 years.
Yes.
Are there any guarantees that the ACC is going to exist in 9 years?
Well, they have a contract that exists at least that long. So what they've done is they have staved off the fact that Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina will leave as soon as the lawyers and money people tell them to.
Okay.
So when the lawyers and money people tell them that they can leave and they find invitations other places, they have gotten to the point where if 3 schools leave, they're still at 15. ESPN can't renegotiate their deal. And even if that does happen, they would have time to, like, say Miami wanted to leave too. Like, if that happens, Miami wants to leave too, and they can get that kind of money and lawyers going. The 4 teams leave. They can call up USF and be like, hey, you're in. Okay. You in? Like, you're, kind of like George Clooney and Matt Damon and Ocean's 11, like, you're either in or you're out right now.
Right now. So, I don't know. What do you think about it? Because I feel like, is there anybody nationally or regionally that you respect and read and listen to that's like, looks at SMU and thinks, great move for them, smart move for them?
I think it is a smart move because what other way are they going to get in the power conferences? What other way are they going to get to do that? Otherwise, there's no other way for them to do that, to get into that point. And so, yeah, it's a good move for them. And it's going to be expensive, but they've got the money. It's not like they've got it. They're willing to do it. They're going to spend big. And here's the other thing. If you look at the ACC, kind of like how the Big 12 was, all right, why is the Big 12 wide open right now? Because Oklahoma's leaving. And Texas hasn't won it in a very long time, but those 2 schools are not going to be there, taking up a lot of the oxygen. Well, if the equivalent of that leaves the ACC,
Florida State and Clemson,
who have won it in football pretty much every year, save for a rando here and there since the 90s, then that opens it up. And so if you're SMU and you're loading up NIL, you can recruit in Texas and Florida, and you've got all the things you want. Shoot, I mean, Wake Forest has won this league. The only thing that keeps Wake Forest from winning it twice is that there's a Clemson. right?
Yeah.
You know, winning it back-to-back years has been the Clemson exists.
Yeah.
Okay? So you take that out of the equation just in a numbers game. It doesn't even matter who it is. Like, that's going to help you win the league. So for schools like NC State that might be around, or Louisville, or all that are like right there but need more room, shoot. They can do it. Now, Stanford and Cal just need to be somewhere. And
Yeah, that felt like a had to do it thing.
absolutely. All right, well, it's 2:00. That means the show's over.
Okay.
This has been very spirited. Always is. There's sadly no show tomorrow. I'm going to tell everybody right now I've got to say goodbye to my best friend tomorrow. It's going to be a tough day, so we will not be on the air tomorrow. So
I'm sorry, man.
yeah, thank you.
Wednesday is Steven
Wednesday,
here?
Steven will be here. So
People should tune in for that.
yes, and Steven will help buoy my spirits.
Yes,
so,
he will.
But yes, so no show tomorrow, but we're back on a Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Jack, Garrett, Emery, Chris.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, yes. We will see you on Wednesday, everybody. Thanks a lot.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more.